Today I'm going to be talking about Fog of War and Fire Emblem Fangames because I feel like this is a topic that comes up a lot and there's not really a consensus on it, so I'd like to offer my opinion and why I think what I do about this mechanic. So, first off, I want to start off positively, which is what are the benefits of fog, right? So, I think the main thing is it serves the story and it creates a specific kind of atmosphere that is a bit more oppressive and a bit more interesting because now you can't see the enemies or you can't see anything in the case of Thracia Fog. And it's a change of pace in the game because you're playing a map in a different kind of way and it's a different situation in general that you can't tackle just like the other maps. So in these ways, I think it has a benefit, mostly as a story tool, but also as an atmospheric tool, and a tool to create a sort of difference in kind during gameplay. So I'm not sure if you could guess, but I do not like fog as it exists right now, and I'm going to get into that right now. The first one is here's just a picture of Arcadia. It doesn't have the fog on it or anything, but it can uh, fog can obscure information from the player in a way that feels very cheaply unfair. Instead of there's a difference between feeling cheaply unfair and a map being more weighted towards the enemy, but in a way that the player can predict and plan around and only blame themselves if they lose. So probably one of the biggest things in fog is that if there's a flyer or some 8-move unit in the fog, especially if they have an effective weapon or the like, then they'll outrange you by a lot and they can just sneak up on you and kill one of your units without you having any sort of way to counterplay. And I'm just going to specify, I'm not saying specifically about Arcadia. I know that for a lot of experienced players, this map can be a lot of fun, but especially as a blind player, it can be frustrating. But I'm not talking about it specifically, it is just an example. And then, onto my probably biggest problem with fog is that enemies don't react to fog in the same way player does. So what I mean by this is that the player has no info. They don't know where the enemies are outside of their relatively low vision range without a thief or a torch staff or torch item. But enemies act as if the fog just doesn't exist because currently in Fire Emblem Game Boy Advance hacking and I believe in other fan game engines, there doesn't exist uh, AI that acts as if their vision is being obscured by fog. So basically, the enemies can see everything and you can't see anything. And that's what I was getting into with this. Tools don't exist right now. The sort of tools to create this AI, I know it's been tossed around a lot, but as it stands, it doesn't exist and you can't pull it off unless with a really clunky solution like move in half range AI, which has its own host of problems because at first it's just move in half range, but then after that it's move in full range, which is unclear to the player and there's no sort of telegraphing for it, or attack when adjacent AI, which again, it literally won't attack you on enemy phase. It'll just run up to you and basically like hug you and trap you, which feels very can easily clog up a map if there are a lot of enemies on it. So in that way, I think the tools to properly make use of Fog of War as uh, to its full potential as a storytelling and atmospheric device, as well as a gameplay device, especially, are not do not exist as it currently stands. So then another problem I have with fog, these are sort of more minor problems compared to the major problems of enemy AI and players getting way too little info. Is that the solutions to fog are pretty easy. Like they're pretty simple and brainless. So you just deploy a thief and you use a torch staff or torch item. There's not really that much that goes into it. It's similar to sort of just using restore to a status staff. And the second of all, this kind of ties into the enemies having way more info than you, is that it encourages defensive play because the enemies know where you are, but you have no way of knowing if there's some kind of flyer in the fog or whatever in the fog that you're not equipped to handle. So even if the map has an anti-turtle, you're more incentivized to go slower because the range of vision is so low. And that can lead to a more tedious experience and one that isn't super fun for the player. And yeah, that's about it. This is a really short video because I have pretty basic points against fog. I do not think it's always a bad mechanic. I really like it just in concept, but as it stands in any GBA ROM hack or just fan game in any engine, I don't think there's ever been a map with fog added to it that wouldn't be improved without fog, because the sort of tech isn't there yet. Um, yeah, I'm welcoming to other sorts of perspectives on this, but I just wanted to make clear why I think what I do about fog and how I think it can be made into a worthwhile mechanic that I'd love to see. Yeah.